They called her a fool. They whispered behind their lace fans that she was throwing her life away for a beggar in a dirty coat. Erica was the town's most eligible spinster, and Elias Graves was nothing but a dirt-poor widower with 3 wild daughters and a patch of land the devil wouldn't claim. The whole town of Silver Creek laughed when they rode away. But they didn't know what Elias was hiding behind those jagged ridges. They didn't know that the poor widower held the key to a secret that would bring the relentless cattle barons to their knees and turn the town's mockery into envy so green it would poison them. This is the story of how one woman's gamble on love revealed a treasure worth dying for. The year was 1884, and the town of Silver Creek, Colorado, was a place where reputation was worth more than gold dust. If you had a good name, you could get credit at Miller's General Store. If you didn't, you were lucky to get a nod on the street. Erica Miller had a good name. In fact, she had the best name. She was the 28-year-old daughter of the town's late reverend, a woman known for her sharp mind, her skilled needlepoint, and unfortunately, her lack of a husband. In the harsh arithmetic of the frontier, a woman unmarried by 25 was a tragedy. By 28, she was a punchline. But Erica wasn't desperate. She was lonely, perhaps, but she possessed a quiet dignity that kept the town gossip Mrs. Beatrice Higgins at bay. That is until the day Elias Graves walked into the church social. Elias was a mountain of a man, but a mountain eroded by harsh weather. His coat was dusted with the red clay of the Badlands, his boots were worn through at the toes, and his eyes, a piercing storm cloud grey, held the haunted look of a man who had buried too much of his heart. He was a widower living somewhere out in the Devil's Anvil, a stretch of rocky wasteland north of town that even the coyotes avoided. Rumor had it, his wife had died of hardship, leaving him with 3 unruly daughters. He didn't come for the punch or the dancing. He walked straight to Erica, hat in hand, the silence in the room spreading outward from him like ripples in a pond. "Miss Erica," he said, his voice like gravel grinding together. "I have need of a wife, and my girls, they have need of a mother." The room gasped. It was the most unromantic proposal Silver Creek had ever witnessed. Mrs. Higgins actually dropped her fan. Erica looked at him. She didn't see the dirt. She saw the trembling of his hands. She saw a desperation he was too proud to voice. And looking into those grey eyes, she saw something else, a spark of fierce, protective intelligence that didn't match the dumb dirt farmer reputation the town had given him. "Mr. Graves," Erica replied, her voice steady. "I am not a piece of livestock to be acquired because of need." "I know that," Elias said softly, so only she could hear. "I ain't asking for a servant. I'm asking for a partner. I can't offer you silk or lace, Erica, but I can offer you respect, and I promise you, if you trust me, you won't never want for nothing again." There was a weight to his promise, a strange gravity that pulled at her. Erica looked around the room at the smirking faces of the banker's son, who had once courted her and left her for a younger debutante, at the pitying eyes of the church ladies. She looked back at Elias, a man standing alone against the world. "I will marry you, Elias Graves," she said. The scandal was instantaneous. The weeks leading up to the wedding were a gauntlet of mockery. The banker Jedediah Blackwood, a man who owned half the valley and wanted the other half, stopped Erica on the boardwalk. "Erica, be reasonable," Blackwood sneered, hooking his thumbs into his velvet vest. "Graves is a squatter. He lives on rock and sand. You'll be starving within the month. If you're that desperate for a home, I have a maid's position open at my estate." I'd rather starve with a man of honor than feast with a vulture." "Mr. Blackwood," Erica retorted, clutching her shawl tighter. The wedding was a hurried affair at the courthouse. No guests, just the judge and a drunkard acting as a witness. As they walked out, Elias helped her into his wagon. It was a rickety thing, the wood grey and splintering. In the back sat 3 girls, Abigail 12, with eyes full of suspicion, Hattie 8, who refused to look at Erica, and little Clementine, Frittle, who was clutching a rag doll that looked more like a grease rag. "Ready?" Elias asked, climbing onto the bench seat. "Ready," Erica lied. As the wagon creaked forward, they passed the saloon. A group of men led by the Blackwood foreman raised their glasses. "To the Queen of the Badlands," they shouted, roaring with laughter. "Don't forget to write us when you're eating boiled leather for supper." Erica kept her chin high, staring straight ahead at the horizon. But inside her heart was hammering. She had just bet her entire life on a stranger. The journey to Elias's homestead took 2 grueling days. As they left the fertile green pastures of Silver Creek, behind the land began to change. The grass turned yellow and brittle, then disappeared entirely, replaced by sagebrush and jagged red rock. The heat was oppressive, a physical weight pressing down on the wagon canvas. Erica tried to make conversation with the girls, but it was like talking to stone walls. "That's a lovely doll, Clementine," Erica said gently. The 5-year-old pulled the doll closer. Abigail, the eldest, snapped. "She don't need you to tell her it's lovely. It's hers." "Abigail," Elias warned from the front seat, his voice low. "It's all right, Elias," Erica said, though the rejection stung. "Change is hard." "We didn't opt for change," Abigail muttered, staring out at the dust. By the afternoon of the 2nd day, they entered the region known as the Devil's Anvil. It was a desolate landscape of towering mesas and deep, dry arroyos. It looked like the surface of the moon. Erica's heart sank. How could anyone survive here? There was no water, no game, no timber, just rock and wind. "Nearly there," Elias said. He steered the horses toward a sheer cliff face. Erica gripped the bench. "Elias, that's a wall. There's no road." "Trust me," he said. It was the same thing he had said at the social. He guided the horses into a narrow fissure in the rock, a shadow so deep it looked like a cave entrance. The wagon wheels scraped against the stone walls, the screeching sound echoing like a scream. The temperature dropped 20 degrees. They were in a slot canyon, winding through the earth like a snake. Just as Erica thought the darkness would swallow them, the canyon opened up into a small, boxy enclosure surrounded by high cliffs. "Home," Elias announced. Erica looked around, fighting back tears. It was bleak. There was a sod house built directly into the side of the cliff, half cave and half mud. A small corral held a single bony milk cow. There was a patch of dirt where a few sad-looking corn stalks were trying to die with dignity. "This is it," she whispered. Elias jumped down and offered her a hand. "For now. It keeps the wind off and the heat out." The first week was a nightmare. The sod house was dark and smelled of wood smoke and old grease. The girls were engaged in open warfare against her. Hattie put a lizard in Erica's sewing basket. Abigail accidentally spilled the water bucket Erica had just hauled from the muddy seep that served as their well. But the hardest part was the silence of Elias. He was up before dawn and gone until after dark. He would return exhausted, his hands bleeding, covered in a strange grayish dust. He wouldn't say where he had been, only that he was working the North Ridge. "Working on what?" Erica asked one night over a dinner of thin rabbit stew. Elias, there's nothing on the north ridge but buzzards. You're killing yourself for dust. Elias looked up, his face gaunt in the lantern light. I'm building something, Erica. You have to wait. We don't have time to wait. Erica snapped, the stress finally breaking her composure. The flour is low. The girls have no shoes for winter. The town... They were right, weren't they? We are starving in a hole in the ground. Elias stood up his chair, scraping loudly. He looked angry, but then his shoulders slumped. He walked over to a heavy wooden chest in the corner of the room, the only piece of furniture that looked solid. He unlocked it with a key he wore around his neck. He pulled out a small leather pouch and tossed it onto the table. It landed with a heavy thud that didn't sound like coins. Erica opened it. Inside wasn't gold. It was a handful of stones, deep, mesmerizingly blue stones veined with black. Turquoise. But not just any turquoise. This was hard, gem-grade stone, the color of a summer sky. That ain't from the North Ridge, Elias said quietly. That's just what I found on the surface. But that ain't the treasure, Erica. The treasure is what's guarding it. I don't understand, Erica said, fingering the cold stones. If you have this, why do we live like this? Why didn't you sell it? Because if I sell one stone in Silver Creek, Jedediah Blackwood will know. Elias said, his voice hardening. Blackwood has been trying to buy this land for 5 years. He thinks there's copper here. If he knew what I really found, he wouldn't buy the land, Erica. He'd kill us for it. He leaned in close, his gray eyes burning. But the stones aren't the secret. Tomorrow I want you to ride with me. It's time you saw the Hidden Valley. The Hidden Valley? Erica asked. Elias, we are in a box canyon. There is no valley. Elias actually smiled, a rare, crooked expression that took 10 years off his face. That's what the maps say. That's what Blackwood thinks. Get some sleep, Erica. Tomorrow, everything changes. That night, listening to the wind howl through the slot canyon, Erica couldn't sleep. She realized the mockery of the town, the poverty of the sod house. It was all a disguise. Elias Graves wasn't a failure. He was a guardian. But guardian of what? The next morning, the sun hadn't yet breached the canyon walls when Elias saddled 2 horses. He instructed Abigail to watch her sisters. The girl looked at Erica with a new expression, not quite respect, but curiosity. She had seen the blue stones on the table the night before. Elias led Erica not out of the canyon, but deeper into it toward the back wall, where the cliffs seemed to merge into a solid face of granite. There's no way through, Erica said. Look closer, Elias urged. Behind a massive slab of fallen rock, hidden by a thicket of thorny mesquite, was a cave entrance no wider than a doorway. They had to dismount and lead the horses. The passage was pitch black and smelled of damp earth, a stark contrast to the dry dust outside. They walked for 20 minutes in the dark, the ground sloping upward. Then Erica saw light ahead. Not the harsh glare of the desert sun, but a soft, filtered green light. They emerged onto a ledge, and Erica's breath left her body in a rush. Below them lay a valley, perhaps 3 miles long and a mile wide, completely enclosed by the sheer, unscalable cliffs of the Devil's Anvil. But it wasn't a desert. It was a paradise. A waterfall cascaded down the far cliff, feeding a crystal-clear lake that shimmered in the center of the valley. Massive cottonwood trees and oaks created a canopy of shade. The grass was knee-high and lushly green. Erica saw deer grazing near the water unafraid. "My God," Erica whispered. It's Eden." "The natives knew about it," Elias said, standing beside her. "An old Apache scout showed me the way 10 years ago, after I saved his life. He called it the breath of the mountain. The water comes from an underground aquifer that never runs dry, even in the worst droughts." He pointed to the far side of the valley, where the rock face was exposed. "And there in the quartz veins near the water, that's where the gold is. Not dust, Erica. Veins." Erica turned to him, her mind reeling. "Gold? You have water timber and gold, Elias. You're the richest man in Colorado." "And the most dangerous," he corrected. "This valley, it's fragile. If Blackwood finds it, he'll bring in hydraulic pumps. He'll blast the cliffs to get the gold. He'll drain the lake and cut the trees. He'll turn this paradise into a mud pit within a year." He took her hands, his calloused thumbs brushing her skin. "I didn't marry you to cook my meals, Erica. I married you because you're smart. You can read legal papers. You know how the town works. I know how to protect the land with a rifle, but I don't know how to protect it with a pen. I need you to help me claim this land, legally, so ironclad that not even the governor can take it from us. That is why I brought you here." Erica looked out over the valley. She thought of the sneering faces in town. She thought of the poor widower jokes. A fire ignited in her chest, not of greed, but of vindication. "We won't just claim it, Elias," Erica said, a smile slowly spreading across her face. "We are going to make them pay for every insult. But first we have to survive the winter, and we have to keep the girls quiet." "The girls know about the valley," Elias said. "They've been sneaking in here to swim for years. That's why they hate the soddy. They know what's waiting for them." Erica laughed, a genuine hearty laugh. "Those little rascals. Well then, if we're going to fight Blackwood, we need a plan, and I think I know exactly how to start." Back in the sod house, the dynamic shifted instantly. Erica wasn't just the stepmother anymore. She was a co-conspirator. She sat down with Abigail Hattie and Clementine. "Listen to me," Erica said, her voice firm. "We are sitting on a kingdom, but to keep it, we have to play a game. When we go to town, we are poor. We are miserable. We are starving. Can you do that?" Abigail grinned a wicked, sharp-toothed smile that looked just like her father's. "I can look miserable, ma'am. I've been practicing." "Good," Erica said, "because next week I'm going into town to sell some of your father's junk to Mr. Blackwood, and I'm going to make him think he's winning." The trip back to Silver Creek a month later was a theatrical masterpiece. Erica wore her oldest dress rubbing dust into the hem. She deliberately didn't brush her hair. Elias slumped in the wagon seat, looking defeated. They parked in front of the general store. As expected, Mrs. Higgins and her circle were there. "Oh, look," Mrs. Higgins whispered loudly. "The prodigal bride returns. She looks thin." Erica climbed down, keeping her head low. She walked straight to the bank where Jedediah Blackwood sat behind his mahogany desk. "Mrs. Graves," Blackwood smirked. "Come to your senses. I assume you're here to ask for that maid position." Erica sat in the chair, twisting a handkerchief in her hands. "Mr. Blackwood, it's harder than I thought. The land is so dry. Elias tries, but—" She let a sob escape. Blackwood's eyes gleamed. "I told you, Erica. The man is a failure." He found some rocks," Erica said, trembling. "He thinks they might be worth something. He wants to buy a plow. I told him it's foolishness, but—" She placed 3 of the raw turquoise stones on the desk. They were good quality, but she had deliberately chosen the smaller, unpolished ones. Blackwood picked one up, examining it. He was a greedy man, but he wasn't a geologist. He saw blue stone. Pretty, but hardly a fortune, Erica. Semi-precious at best. Could you give us $50 for the lot? Erica begged. Just for a plow and some winter wheat. Blackwood laughed. $50, Erica. I'm running a business, not a charity. I'll give you 20, and I'll have you sign a lien on the property. If you can't pay the 20 back in 6 months, the land deed reverts to the bank. This was the trap. Erica knew Blackwood wanted the land speculatively. He didn't know about the gold or the water, but he wanted the acreage for cattle grazing rights. A lien? Erica feigned horror. But Elias, take it or leave it, Blackwood said cold. Erica signed the paper, but she had read the document upside down while he was gloating. It specified the coordinates of the homestead, the rocky wasteland known as Plot 44. It did not specify the unclaimed waste territory behind the ridge, because on the town maps that area was marked as solid mountain. Erica took the $20. She walked out of the bank, looking devastated. Well, Elias asked when she climbed into the wagon. He took the bait, Erica whispered. He thinks we're desperate. He thinks he owns us. Now we use this $20 to file the claim on the valley at the land office in Denver. Not here. In Denver. Denver is a week's ride, Elias said. Then you better get moving, Erica said. I'll hold down the fort. As Elias rode off that night under the cover of darkness, Erica sat in the soddy with a shotgun across her lap. She knew the hardest part was coming. Blackwood was arrogant, but he wasn't stupid. If he saw Elias heading toward the capital, he'd get suspicious. 2 days later, the foreman of the Blackwood ranch, a brute named Silas Vane, rode up to the soddy. He didn't dismount. Where's your man, Mrs. Graves? Vane shouted. Hunting! Erica lied, standing in the doorway. Abigail stood behind her, clutching a pitchfork. Hunting in the Badlands. Vane spat tobacco juice on their clean step. Boss wants to know when that payment is coming. He's feeling impatient. Maybe he wants the land early. We have 6 months, Erica said steadily. The contract is signed. Accidents happen out here, ma'am, Vane sneered. Fires happen. Rock slides happen. Tell Elias to be careful. Vane rode off, but he didn't go back to town. He rode north, toward the ridge, toward the entrance to the Slot Canyon. Erica's blood ran cold. If Vane found the Slot Canyon, he'd find the valley. Abigail, Erica said, her voice shaking. I need you to do something very brave. What? The girl asked. I need you to take the pony and ride to the old mine shaft on the East Mesa. Make a trail. Make it look like your father is hiding something there. But that's a decoy, Abigail realized. Exactly. Lead them away from the valley. Can you do it? Abigail didn't hesitate. Watch me. Abigail Graves was 12 years old, but in the Badlands age was measured in scars, not years. She rode the pony, a skittish mare named Bess, with the ease of a Comanche scout. Following Erica's instructions, she didn't ride fast. She rode just fast enough to be seen catching the sunlight on the ridges so that Silas Vane, watching from a mile back with his spyglass, would catch the flash of her movement. She led him east toward the Dead Man's Shaft, an abandoned silver mine that smelled of sulfur and rot. She dismounted, scuffed the ground to make it look like heavy traffic, and dragged a heavy sack of rocks into the mine entrance, acting furtive and terrified. Then she slipped out the back ventilation shaft, shimmied down a ravine, and doubled back toward the homestead, leaving Vane and his men to spend hours navigating the treacherous, unstable tunnels in search of a treasure that didn't exist. But the victory was short-lived. 3 days passed. Elias had not returned. The heat was becoming unbearable, a suffocating blanket that made the air shimmer. And then the weather turned. In the high desert, storms don't roll in, they explode. The sky turned a bruised purple, and the wind began to scream through the slot canyon like a dying train whistle. Erica, Hattie, and Clementine were huddled in the sod house. Abigail had just returned, her face pale. "They're coming back," she panted, bolting the heavy wooden door. "I saw dust on the ridge, not the east ridge. Here. They figured it out, Erica." Vane wasn't stupid. When he found the mine empty, he realized he'd been played by a child. Now he was coming back with a bruised ego and a thirst for violence. "Put out the lantern," Erica ordered. Her heart was hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird, but her hands were steady. She reached for Elias's spare Winchester rifle. She had never fired a rifle at a man, only at tin cans on a fence post, but she knew how to load it. "Girls, get under the bed," Erica whispered. "I can fight," Abigail argued, grabbing a skinning knife. "You will protect your sisters," Erica commanded, her voice dropping an octave into a tone that brooked no argument. "That is the most important job. Go." Outside, the wind howled, masking the sound of hoofbeats. The first sign of their arrival was the heavy thud of a boot against the door. "Open up, Mrs. Graves." Vane's voice was slurred. He was drunk and angry. "We know your man ain't here. We know you're hiding something in that canyon. Open up, or we burn this rat hole down." Erica stood in the center of the dark room, the rifle leveled at the door. "This is private property, Mr. Vane," she shouted. "If you break that door, I will not hesitate to defend my home." Laughter erupted outside. "Hear that, boys? The school ma'am is gonna shoot us." A heavy shoulder slammed into the wood. Dust rained down from the sod ceiling. Clementine whimpered under the bed. "Hush now, Clem," Abigail whispered fiercely. Another slam. The wood splintered near the latch. Erica cocked the lever. Click, clack. The sound was loud in the small room. "Last warning!" Erica screamed. The door flew open. A silhouette filled the frame, illuminated by a flash of lightning. Erica didn't look at the face. She looked at the center of the mass. She pulled the trigger. The gun roared to the recoil, slamming into her shoulder. The figure in the doorway shouted and stumbled back, clutching his arm. It was one of Vane's lackeys, not Vane himself. "She shot me. The crazy witch shot me." "Get her!" Vane screamed. But before they could rush the door, a crack of thunder shook the ground, or what sounded like thunder. But it was too rhythmic. Crack, 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 gunshots from the ridge above. Erica peered through the smoke. High up on the rim of the canyon, a figure sat on horseback, silhouetted against the lightning. He held a long-range buffalo rifle. "I suggest you gentlemen step away from my wife." A voice boomed down, echoing off the canyon walls. It wasn't Elias. The voice was too refined, too smooth. Vane squinted up into the rain. "Who the hell are you?" "I am Deputy U.S. Marshal Thaddeus Moore," the voice called out. "And I have a posse of 6 men with me. You have 5 seconds to drop your weapons and ride out, or I leave you for the vultures." Vane froze. A local sheriff he could bribe. A U.S. Marshal was a different animal, and if he had the high ground... "This ain't over," Vane spat, dragging his wounded man toward their horses. "Blackwood owns this town. You'll see." They scrambled onto their mounts and galloped away into the storm. Erica lowered the rifle, her knees shaking so hard she had to lean against the table. The figure on the ridge rode down slowly, followed by another man. The second man jumped off his horse before it even stopped moving and ran into the soddy. "Erica!" It was Elias. He was soaked to the bone, his face gaunt, his eyes wild with fear. He grabbed her, pulling her into a crushing embrace. She could feel him trembling. "I heard the shot." He gasped into her hair. I thought I was too late." Erica buried her face in his wet coat, smelling the rain and the horse and the man she had come to love. "You're here?" she sobbed. "You're here?" "I brought help," Elias said, pulling back to look at her. "Erica, meet Marshall Moore, and meet the man who just bought the rights to the Union Pacific Water Station." Erica looked at the marshal, a tall man with a white mustache, who tipped his hat. Then she looked at Elias. "You sold the water rights?" she asked. "Not the land?" Elias grinned, a fierce, triumphant look returning to his eyes. "Just the water. The railroad needs a refill station between Denver and Salt Lake. I showed them the survey of the Hidden Valley. They signed a contract yesterday. Erica, we aren't just squatters anymore. We're partners with the biggest railroad in America." The storm that had raged over the Devil's Anvil broke just before dawn, leaving the high desert scrubbed clean. The air, usually thick with dust, smelled sharply of sagebrush ozone and wet stone. Inside the sod house, the mood was one of grim determination. There was no celebration yet, only the quiet, methodical preparation for war. But this wasn't a war of bullets. It was a war of perception. Erica stood before the cracked mirror, adjusting the collar of the blue silk dress she had kept hidden in the bottom of her trunk for 3 months. It was a relic from her old life, a garment of fine French fabric that seemed alien against the mud walls of the dugout. But as she fastened the pearl buttons, she wasn't dressing for vanity. She was donning armor. "You look like a queen," a small voice said. Erica turned to see Clementine peeking out from behind the curtain. The little girl was scrubbed clean, her hair braided tight. "Not a queen, Clem," Erica said, crouching down to straighten the girl's sash. "A witness. People believe what they see, not what they hear. Today we have to make them see something they don't understand." Outside, the preparations were heavier. Elias was outside with Marshal Thaddeus Moore. The two men stood by the corral, speaking in low tones. Elias had shaved his beard, revealing a jawline that was sharp and strong. He wore a suit he had purchased in Denver, black broadcloth, crisp and tailored. He didn't look like a squatter or a dirt farmer. He looked like a man who owned the horizon. "The town is expecting a funeral," Elias said, as Erica emerged into the sunlight. He offered her his hand, his grey eyes scanning her face with an intensity that made her breath hitch. "Or they're expecting to see us in chains." "Then let's not keep them waiting," Erica replied. They rode out an hour later. It was a procession designed for impact. Marshal Moore and his deputies rode point, their badges gleaming in the sun. Behind them came the wagon, but this time Elias didn't drive it. He hired one of the marshal's men to handle the team. Elias and Erica rode horseback side by side on 2 matching bays that the marshal had brought with him, sleek, powerful animals that danced against the bit. Abigail, Hattie, and Clementine rode in the wagon dressed in their Sunday best, looking less like wild canyon children and more like the heirs to a dynasty. The journey to Silver Creek took 4 hours, but the silence between them was heavy with anticipation. As the town came into view, shimmering in the heat haze, Erica felt a cold knot of anxiety in her stomach. Everything they had, the land, their freedom, their future, hinged on the next 60 minutes. Silver Creek was busy. It was Wednesday market day, and the streets were clogged with wagons. But as the procession turned onto Main Street, the noise died away. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. A blacksmith dropped his hammer. The sight of Elias Graves, the man they called a beggar, riding a thoroughbred horse alongside a U.S. Marshal was so jarring that the town couldn't process it. Is that the widow?" Mrs. Higgins whispered from the boardwalk, clutching her throat. Erica kept her chin high, looking neither left nor right. She could feel the eyes on her, the judgment, the confusion. She focused on the courthouse at the end of the street. They didn't stop at the bank. They didn't stop at the saloon. They rode straight to the hitching post in front of the town hall. Elias dismounted and helped Erica down. He didn't rush. He moved with the deliberate, terrifying calm of a man who holds all the aces. "Stay with the girls," Elias told the deputy driving the wagon. "If anyone approaches them, you have my permission to be unpleasant." "Yes, sir." The deputy nodded. Elias offered his arm to Erica. "Ready?" "As I'll ever be," she whispered. They walked up the steps, Marshal Moore trailing a few paces behind, like a silent guardian. Inside the courtroom was stiflingly hot. Judge Miller, a man with a walrus mustache and a penchant for sleeping through testimony, was presiding over a dispute regarding a stolen pig. The room was packed with the usual loafers and gossips. In the front row sat Jedediah Blackwood. He was leaning back in his chair, whispering something to Silas Vane, who sat next to him with his arm in a sling, a souvenir from Erica's rifle the night before. Blackwood looked smug. He looked like a man who had already mentally spent the money he was going to make from the Graves foreclosure. When the heavy oak doors swung open, the sound echoed like a gunshot. Elias and Erica walked down the center aisle. The sound of their boots on the floorboards was the only noise in the room. Blackwood turned. His smile faltered, then vanished. He blinked, as if trying to clear a mirage. He looked at the suit. He looked at Erica's silk. He looked at the marshal. "Your Honor." Elias's voice boomed deep and resonant, cutting through the stagnant air. "I apologize for the interruption, but I have urgent business regarding the title of Plot 44 and the surrounding territories." Judge Miller adjusted his spectacles, squinting. "Mr. Graves, is that you?" "It is," Elias said, stopping before the bench. "I'm here to settle a debt." Blackwood shot to his feet, his face flushing a dangerous shade of crimson. "This is highly irregular. This man is a squatter and a debtor. He owes the bank $20 due today at noon. If he doesn't have it, the land is mine. That is the contract." "Sit down, Mr. Blackwood," the judge warned, though he looked uncertain. "I'm here to pay the lien," Erica said, stepping forward. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was clear as a bell. She opened her reticule, a small velvet bag. She didn't count out crumpled bills or copper pennies. She reached in and pulled out a single gold coin. It was a double eagle, fresh from the Denver mint, heavy and bright. She tossed it. The coin arched through the air, catching the light from the high windows, and landed on the judge's desk. It spun on its edge, whirr, before settling with a decisive, heavy ring. $20, Erica said. "Keep the change for the court fees." The room gasped. $20 in gold was a month's wages for some men. To toss it away like a poker chip was an act of supreme defiance. Blackwood stared at the coin, his hands curling into fists. "Where did you get him that you stole it, or you robbed a stagecoach?" He turned to the marshal. "Arrest him. Moore, investigate him." "Marshal." Moore stepped forward, hooking his thumbs into his gun belt. "Mr. Graves is under no suspicion of theft. Mr. Blackwood. In fact, I escorted him to the Federal Land Office in Denver myself." "Land Office?" Blackwood's eyes narrowed. "What for?" "To register a patch of dust." Elias smiled. It was a wolfish, predatory smile that made the hair on the back of Erica's neck stand up. "Not dust, Jedediah," Elias said softly. "Water." Elias unrolled a large parchment tube he had been carrying under his arm. He spread it out over the defense table. It was a surveyor's map stamped with the official seal of the Department of the Interior and the Union Pacific Railroad. "This," Elias announced, pointing to the map, "is the official survey of the Graves Valley. It turns out that solid rock wall you were so uninterested in, it hides the largest natural aquifer in the county. A 3-mile-long valley with timber grazing land and a lake." The murmuring in the crowd grew louder. "So you have water." Blackwood sneered, though his voice was higher-pitched now. "So what?" "You're a farmer with a pond. I can still crush you. I control the markets in this town." "You control the town," Erica interjected. "But you don't control the railroad." Elias pulled a second document from his jacket pocket. "As of yesterday, the Union Pacific has purchased the exclusive water rights for their new southern spur. The tracks will be diverted through my land. They are building a depot, a refueling station and a hotel, and in exchange they have provided a signing bonus." Blackwood looked like he had been slapped. The railroad. The railroad was God in the West. If the Union Pacific was backing Elias, Blackwood was powerless. That's a lie," Blackwood stammered. "There's no way. And one more thing." Elias interrupted, his voice dropping to a gravelly rumble. "While the surveyors were mapping the water, they found something else in the quartz veins near the falls." He reached into his pocket again. He pulled out a bundle wrapped in dark velvet. He placed it on the judge's bench right next to the gold coin. Slowly, dramatically, he unfolded the cloth. It wasn't dust. It wasn't a few flakes. It was a nugget. A raw, jagged chunk of gold the size of a hen's egg, laced with ribbons of white quartz. It sat there heavy and undeniable, absorbing the light in the room. The silence that followed was absolute. It was a vacuum. Every pair of eyes in the courtroom was glued to that rock. "Mother of God," the judge whispered. "The assay report puts the vein at 90% purity," Elias said casually, "and it runs for half a mile." Pandemonium broke out. Men were standing on benches to get a look. Mrs. Higgins actually swooned, collapsing into the arms of the town baker. The shout of "gold" echoed out to the doors and into the street. But Erica didn't look at the gold. She looked at Jedediah Blackwood. The banker had collapsed back into his chair. His face was grey. He realized with horrifying clarity what had happened. He had spent years trying to bully a man for a patch of badlands, thinking he was squeezing a turnip while that same man was sitting on a kingdom. Elias leaned over the railing, bringing his face inches from Blackwood's. "You sent Silas Vane to my home," Elias whispered low enough that only Blackwood and Erica could hear. "You threatened my wife. You threatened my children. Marshal Moore has the affidavit from Vane. He talked Jedediah. To save his own skin, he told the marshal everything about the fires, the intimidation, the accidents." Blackwood looked at the marshal, who nodded grimly, tapping the handcuffs on his belt. "I'm pressing charges," Elias said, straightening up and addressing the room. "For trespassing, attempted arson, and conspiracy to commit murder." "Bailiff." The judge banged his gavel, trying to regain control. "Take Mr. Blackwood into custody, pending a federal hearing." As two deputies hauled the sputtering, protesting banker out of his chair, the crowd parted. They didn't look at him with fear anymore. They looked at him with disgust. The power had shifted in the blink of an eye. The gold on the table had crowned a new king. Erica watched Blackwood being dragged away. She felt a hand on her shoulder. It was Elias. "It's done," he said. Erica looked around the room. She saw the faces of the people who had mocked her, the women who had whispered that she was desperate, the men who had laughed at Elias's ragged coat. Now they looked at her with a mixture of awe and terrifying envy. She walked over to the table and picked up the gold nugget. It was cold and heavy in her hand. She turned to Mrs. Higgins, who had just been revived with smelling salts. "Mrs. Higgins," Erica said, her voice sweet as poisoned honey, "you always said I should find a husband with prospects. Do you think this qualifies?" Mrs. Higgins opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She simply nodded, her eyes wide. Erica placed the nugget back in Elias's hand. She took his arm, feeling the solid, reassuring warmth of him. "Let's go home, Elias," she said. "We have a harvest to plan." They walked out of the courthouse and into the blinding afternoon sun. The town was silent as they passed, but it was a different kind of silence now. It wasn't the silence of mockery. It was the silence of respect. As they reached the wagon, Abigail looked down at them, a fierce grin on her face. "Did we win?" she asked. Elias looked at Erica. He looked at the gold in his pocket, the badge on the marshal's chest, and the stunned town behind them. "Yeah, Abby." Elias smiled, lifting his daughter's chin. "We won. We won it all." 1 year later. The transformation of the Devil's Anvil was nothing short of biblical. Where there had once been only silence and red dust, there was now the rhythmic chug of a steam engine and the scent of blooming alfalfa. Elias had not merely built a house, he had constructed a legacy. The sod dugout was gone, returned to the earth. In its place, perched on the limestone ridge overlooking the lush green bowl of the hidden valley, stood a sprawling ranch house. It was built of imported cedar and local river stone, with a wraparound porch that offered a view of the new world they had created. A spur line of the Union Pacific now snaked through the widened canyon pass, stopping at the water depot near the lake. Every day, trains stopped to refill their tanks with the crystal-clear water of the Graves Aquifer, and every day, flatbed cars were loaded with high-grade timber and crates of gold ore. But today, the trains were still. Today was the first annual Valley Harvest Festival. It was Erica's idea. "We cannot live in a fortress, Elias," she had told him. "If we want to truly win, we don't just defeat them. We invite them in. We let them see exactly what they threw away." The gates to the valley were thrown open. The people of Silver Creek arrived in a steady stream of buggies and wagons. They rode through the Graves Pass, the slot canyon Elias had widened with dynamite, and emerged blinking into the sunlight. The collective gasp of the townspeople was audible from the porch where Erica stood. They expected a mine. They expected an industrial scar. Instead, they found Eden. The waterfall cascaded down the cliffs in a silver ribbon, feeding a lake that reflected the deep blue Colorado sky. The orchards planted just 10 months prior were already heavy with fruit thanks to the miraculous soil. Erica smoothed the skirt of her ivory lace dress. She wasn't the spinster anymore. She wasn't the pity case. She was the matriarch of the wealthiest estate in the territory. "They look terrified," a voice said beside her. Erica turned to see Abigail. The girl was 13 now, tall and striking, wearing a dress of yellow silk, but she still wore her riding boots, and her eyes held that familiar, sharp vigilance. "They aren't terrified, Abby," Erica corrected gently. "They are humbled. There is a difference." "I see Mrs. Higgins." Abigail pointed out a mischievous glint in her eye. "She looks like she swallowed a lemon." "Be kind," Erica warned, though she couldn't suppress a smile. "Kindness is the cruelest weapon we have today." Erica descended these steps and walked into the crowd. The atmosphere was strange at first, stiff and awkward. The townspeople who had spent years mocking Elias Graves were now drinking his wine and eating roast venison at his tables. Mrs. Beatrice Higgins was holding a crystal punch cup as if it were a grenade. When she saw Erica approaching, she stiffened, fixing a brittle smile onto her face. "Erica, darling," Mrs. Higgins cooed, her voice pitching too high. Well, it's simply overwhelming. To think all this was hiding back here while we were worrying about you." "Worrying?" Erica repeated, her tone pleasant but sharp as glass. "I recall you predicting I would starve, Beatrice. I'm happy to report that the only thing we are in danger of is overindulgence." Mrs. Higgins flushed. "Well, yes. I always said Elias was a diamond in the rough. I always told the girls Erica has an eye for quality." "Indeed," Erica said, stepping closer, her voice dropping so only the gossip could hear. "It's amazing what you can find when you stop looking at the surface and start looking at the soul. Do enjoy the tart, Beatrice. It's made with apricots from our own trees." She walked away, leaving the woman speechless. It was the final victory, total, absolute, and bloodless. Erica found Elias near the waterfall, away from the noise of the fiddle music and the clinking glasses. He was leaning against a large oak tree, watching the water. He looked uncomfortable in his tailored suit, tugging at his starched collar. "You're hiding," Erica accused softly, coming up beside him. "I'm observing," Elias corrected, though he grinned when he saw her. He reached out and took her hand, his palm rough and warm against her skin. "I still expect to wake up Erica. I expect to wake up in the soddy with dirt in my teeth." "Look at them," Erica said, gesturing to the valley floor where the townspeople were dancing. "This isn't a dream, Elias. You built this. You broke your back for this." "We built this," he said firmly. He turned her to face him, blocking out the crowd. "I had the land, Erica, but I was a ghost. I was just haunting these rocks until you showed up. You're the one who turned it into a home. You're the one who made them respect us." He looked over her shoulder at his daughters. Hattie and Clementine were chasing fireflies by the water's edge, shrieking with laughter, while Abigail was showing the banker's son how to properly tie a lasso, looking thoroughly unimpressed by his efforts. "I didn't marry you for the gold, you know," Erica whispered, looking up into his storm-grey eyes. "I know," Elias replied. "You married me for my charming personality and my leaky roof." "I married you," she said, her voice trembling with emotion, "because I saw a man who would move mountains for the people he loved. And it turns out I was right. You actually moved the mountain." The music swelled a slow waltz. "Dance with me, Mr. Graves," Erica commanded. "I'm a terrible dancer," Elias protested. "You are the richest man in the county and the master of the Hidden Valley," Erica said, pulling him close. "No one is going to dare tell you that you have 2 left feet." Elias laughed, a deep, resonant sound that seemed to vibrate through her chest. He pulled her into his arms and they began to move. They danced on the edge of the water under the canopy of the cottonwoods. The sun was setting the red cliffs of the Devil's Anvil on fire, casting a golden glow over the valley. The townspeople stopped to watch. The gossip stopped. The jealousy stopped. For a moment, there was just the music, the water, and the two of them. The spinster and the widower. The queen and the king of the Badlands. Erica rested her head on his shoulder, closing her eyes. They had mocked her choice. They had called her a fool. But as the stars began to appear above the canyon rim, Erica knew the truth. She had made the greatest gamble of her life on a man with nothing but dirt on his boots and a fire in his heart. And she had won the only jackpot that really mattered. And so Erica and Elias proved that the richest veins of gold are often hidden beneath the roughest rocks. They taught the town of Silver Creek that you can't judge a man by his coat, nor a woman by her age. Their story reminds us that sometimes the biggest risks yield the greatest rewards, and the true paradise is something you build, not something you find. If you enjoyed this tale of romance, revenge, and redemption in the Wild West, please give this video a like. It really helps the channel grow. Don't forget to share it with someone who loves a good love story, and subscribe for more hidden gems and dramatic tales from the frontier. What would you have done in Erica's shoes? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.